Hey everybody, John Morris here, johnmorrisonline.com. Welcome back to another tech tutorial. This one, we're going to get into how to build a calendar using PHP. Now, before I dive into the code, I want to make sure and properly contextualize how powerful or advantageous or useful knowing how to do this could be for you. So, this kind of process or being able to do this, having this skill set, is a fairly marketable skill set. For example, if we come over here to the WordPress plugin directory, you can see we have this plugin here called the Events Calendar. If we scroll down here to the bottom, you can see that this plugin is currently has 400,000 plus active installs. Now, that's not, someone downloaded it and they may or may not use it. This is someone who actually has it installed on their site and it's activated. So 400,000 active installs probably would put this in the top 50, maybe even the top 30 of all the WordPress plugins in the WordPress repository. So a very popular plugin, which is an indicator that this sort of end result is something that's marketable. It's something that there are end users out there. There's people out there who want this kind of thing, which means that you could then get hired to build this for people. Okay, so that's one example. Another one, if we come over here to this Talkify and actually go back here, you can see they help build modern, attractive website calendars. Now, you can see here, this is a little bit more advanced than what we're going to be going through here a touch, but I'm going to give you the foundation for this kind of thing. And if we click over to their plans here, you can see they obviously have a free option, but they have an $8 a month, $40 a month white label, and even beyond that. So there are people paying $40 a month for a calendar for their website. Now, I say all that because, I don't know. I don't know what you can do, what you will do. I'm not saying that you're going to build some sort of service like this or a WordPress plugin. What I'm saying is there's a market for this kind of thing out there. So learning this skill set, this is what I always try to do with you guys and gals, is show you skills that are marketable that you can learn and actually use to start getting work. Because learning how to code is one thing. Learning how to have a career from coding is a whole other. All right, so a marketable skill, and I'm going to show you how to do that here. Now, let's take a look at our little calendar here. So you can see the foundation here is really simple, and I tried to write this as abstract as possible so that I didn't make too many decisions for you, so that you could easily tweak this for turning it into a plugin, turning it into some sort of service. That I didn't want to overwrite it for you. But you can see here, we have September 2016. You can see we've got all the different days. It's a 30-day month. We can see that, this is in the right spot in terms of the first day of the month, the last day of the month. We have our spaces filled in and so forth. So we've got a decent looking calendar here. Obviously, you could style it however you wanted, but this is all built using PHP. Now, I initially got this idea from, I was looking around for different tutorial ideas and so forth, and I saw this on CSS Tricks and thought it was pretty cool. And then I had seen one over on David Walsh's blog as well. But the code was from around 2009 in both cases, I believe it was. And so I wanted to update it a little bit. I wanted to, use it in a more of an object-oriented programming type format. And so I wanted to there were some ways that they were doing things that I didn't necessarily think, at least wasn't the way that I wanted to do it and so forth. So I've taken kind of what I saw there in some other tutorials, and I've kind of changed it around into something that I think fits better with how I wanted to do it. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that this is as concise as it could be. I still think that there's some work that could be done here to make this even more concise, but I think it's a good start, and I think it's something that you could take and make your own. And that's really what I want you to do, is to take this foundation, understand how it works, and then say, you know what, John, the way you did line 67 over here, I don't like that. I think it's stupid, or I think this is a better way. I'm going to change this here and make it your own. That's really the point here. All right. So again, I've as this stuff always happens, there were people who inspired me and influenced me in writing this. Now I want to influence you as well. So we're going to go through and do this. As always, you can get this source code if you just want access to this source code to be able to start with as your foundation and not have to recreate the wheel here. All of the source code for all of my videos that I've ever done now, in the past, in the future, are available over on Patreon as a supporting listener, johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon. So if you want the source code, that's where you're going to have to go to get it. All right. With that being said, let's dive into this calendar. So we've got some basic CSS over here. I'm not going to cover this. If you get the download, you'll have access to this. Of course, you can probably figure out how to style it however you want on your own. I've turned on error reporting here at the top, so if we were getting any errors, and I'll just go ahead and refresh this. If we were getting any errors, you can see we're not getting any, but if we were, they'd show up. All right, so we've created a class called calendar, and in that, then we're setting a few private properties. So really, these properties are something that are only going to be available inside of the class. They don't need to be made available outside of the class, so I've made them all private. I can't see any reasonable reason why you would want to make these available outside of this class. So again, they're all just private. We're just setting them here to get us started. And then in our constructor here, we're actually going to set them to some different values here. All right, so in our constructor here, then we're allowing people to pass in the month, the year, and the days of the week. So the way this calendar works, we come down here, when you instantiate the class, you pass in a month and a year, and it will create the calendar based on whatever you put in there. So if I put in 6/2016 and we wait for this to kind of update here, what it's going to do is this class is designed to not be based off of what the time is now, or not be based off a certain month and year. It's going to be based off of whatever we pass into it. So this whole calendar is going to change to be June of 2016, and it's going to be accurate. So if we refresh this, you can see we now get June of 2016. We can see our first date is a little different. See if we can pull this up and go to June of 2016, and you can see the first day is a Wednesday, just like on our calendar. There's 30 days. The last day is a Thursday, just like on our calendar. Okay, so it matches obviously what a regular calendar is, and you can pass in any sort of month and year, and it'll give you a month view. I'll talk a little bit about at the end about how you could expand on this to create a full kind of year, 2-year, 3-year, 4-year calendar. But again, I wanted to give you the foundation, the base. This is really meant to be the core class that you can then build a more robust application on top of. All right, so again, to use it though, we pass in the month and the year that we want to display. All right, so that's what we're getting here in our constructor, our month and our year. And then I've added this where you can pass in the days of the week. So in my display, I have just S, M, T, W, T, H, F, S for the days of the week. You very certainly could want sun, mun, tu, wed, thur, fry, and sat, right? Or you could want the full Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. There's lots of options that you could want for your particular calendar, or your clients could want. So you can actually pass that into the constructor. Now, I haven't done that because we have a default. I've defaulted it to what we see here. But if you want to pass in your own, then you just create the array of what you want it to be and pass those in. Keep in mind that they need to start with Sunday. So you don't want to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because then your days will be off. All right. once we have that, then we're going to get into some bare minimum setup. And essentially all we're doing here is we're actually giving our properties that we established up here, we're giving them some values. So we're going to set the property of month equal to whatever is passed in for the month. Pretty self-explanatory. Year, we're going to set whatever is passed in for the year so that we can then use those throughout the rest of our code. This days of week, we're going to set equal to days of week that were passed in. And then we're going to calculate a few things that we'll need in order to build this sucker. So the first thing that we need is we need to know how many days are in this particular month. So whatever month is passed in, we need to know how many days are in it. So interestingly enough, and I didn't know this, PHP has a function called calDaysInMonth, which is semi-odd to me because usually PHP functions aren't that explicit, but apparently this one is. So this is a built-in PHP function, and it will do exactly what it says, tell you how many days are in a month for a particular month and year and a particular calendar. So if for some reason the calendar you need to build is built off of, it's not Gregorian, it's Julian or some other calendar, there's a number of constants that are available that you can pass in here. Obviously, the Gregorian calendar is the most used, so that's what we're passing in here. You could obviously change that. You could even maybe make it an option if you really wanted to. But you pass in what calendar, you pass in the month. So we're passing in our property of month that was passed in our constructor, and then our year. And that will give us how many calendar days are in that particular month. Now we're going to need that so that we can build our calendar, obviously. Next, we need date info. So again, another function that I really wasn't too familiar with is this one called getDate. And what this is actually going to do, it works a lot like the date function, except instead of you being able to call or be able to get one particular piece of information about a date, it will actually return an array with a bunch of information about a particular date. Okay, so this getDate returns an array that will tell you the minutes, the seconds, the minutes, the hours, the days, the year, and a series of other pieces of information that you might need. So what we're passing to that then is we need to pass the day that we want information about. Now, in this particular case, what the day that we want information about is the first day of this particular month. And so we're using string to time, we're doing first day of, and then we're using this make time function. And actually, now that I look at this, this is a bit redundant, this first day of and this make time, because this make time is hours, minutes, seconds, and then month, day, year, while I'm passing in the first day of the month and the year that were passed, and then 0 hours, minutes, seconds. So this is actually already referencing the first day, and then I'm doing first day of as a string variable here. So this is a bit redundant. You could actually probably just ditch this. But what this is going to do is get us all the information about the first day of this particular month. Now we need that because you'll notice the first day of this month isn't on a Sunday. It's on a Wednesday. And so we need to know, for any month that is passed in, we need to know what day of the week that first day lands on so we can start building our calendar from there. And we'll get to how we do that here in a minute. But this is what allows us to know, or at least gets us started to know, what day of the week the first day falls on, so we know what day to start building the calendar from. Then you'll notice down here we use that date info that we just created here to get this day of the week. And we're getting this W day. So one of the things I remember this is getDate returns an array of information about the day that we specified. One of the things is this W day. And what that W day essentially is the day of the week that day falls on. So this tells us we're passing it. Essentially what we're saying is we get all the info for June 1st. one of the things piece of information that we get from that is the day of the week that June 1st falls on. And that's what we need here to start building our calendar from. Now, this is a zero-based, like most things in PHP. So you see 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is actually going to be ultimately set to the value of 3. So that's what that gives us. So now that we've got all that set up, we have what we need to start building the calendar. So we come down into this show method, and we're just going to start with some simple stuff right off the bat. So the first thing is we're going to start the table, right? We're starting our output, building the table. And then we're creating a header for the date or the month and the year. So that's this section right here. We're putting in a caption tag here, and we're just outputting from date info that we grabbed up here, the month and the year. And that gives us this June 16th output here. And then we close that row. We start the next row because this was a caption. And so in the next row, then we're going to loop through our days of the week and create our header. So this is creating this header right over here. And you remember our days of the week were what were passed here, this S, M, T, W, etc. So we're just looping through this array that was passed in, and we're creating a header cell for each one of those elements, and we're echoing out, or we're outputting the contents of that element. So S, M, T, W, T, H, F, S. Pretty straightforward. All right, so that's what this does. Then here we close that header row because we're done, and we open a new row, and this is where we're going to start our actual days here. Now, this is where things can get a little tricky. So, if the first day of a month does not fall on a Sunday, which is going to be the case most of the time, then we need to fill this space so that then this first day of the month falls on the right day. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is use the call span parameter that you can use for table cells. So essentially, we're creating however many days past the first day of the week this particular date happens to fall. We're going to create a column span that spans that many. Okay, so you can see here we say if this day of the week does not equal 0 or is greater than 0, right? So 0 is Sunday. This Monday is 1, 2, and 3. So if it's greater than 0, then what we're going to do is our output is going to be this column span, and then the number that we're going to span it is equal to what we set for day of the week. Okay, so again, in this case, it's set to 3. Now it happens to work out. This is one of the things that's interesting about this. Because it's 0 based, again, 0, 1, 2, 3, it happens that we need 3 spaces here. And it'll always be, if this were over here, we would need 4. So we can actually, you don't have to do a -1 because of the fact that it's 0 based and the way it works out. So this is going to output essentially a 3 here and create this column span right here of 3 cells, so that then we start our first day that we actually output a number into on the right day. So this is essentially filling this beginning space here. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. From there, and of course then we close that off. From there, then we're going to get into actually looping through our days. So we create a counter, and we start that counter at 1, and this is for the current day. Now there's 2 counters that we're going to work with as we go through this, and it can be a little bit tricky, but we have our current day counter. So we're actually going to count through. If you remember up here, we figured out how many days were in this particular month. So we're going to loop, and we're going to count the days in the month to make sure that we only add however many days are in a particular month. But then on top of that, we also have our rows for the days of the week. And so we're going to make sure that we create a new row whenever we need to based off of the days of the week. So we have 2 counters here. This is our basically our full month counter that's counting all of the days that are in the month. And then we have this day of the week one that we used up here. And remember, it's set to, it's already started us in the right place. So we can leave it how it is and use it as a counter to help us to be able to close these rows at the proper time. Again, it just happens that it works out that you don't have to do any minusing or anything on this. All right, so we set our current day to 1, because that's where we're going to start with 1, not 0. And then we do a while loop. So while this current day is less than or equal to the number of days in this month, right? Again, from up here, number of days in the month. So if the current day is less than or equal to the number of days of the month, then we're going to run our while loop. The first thing we're going to check is we're going to check our day of the week. So if our day of the week is equal to 7, then we're going to do two things. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? This would be the loop after this last day of this particular week. If that's where we're at, then we're going to do two things. One, down here, we're going to close the row and we're going to start a new row. Okay, it's important that those are done in the same, this area here because of the way the rest of this is written. So we're going to close the current row and start a new one. And then we're going to reset our day of the week counter back to 0. Because now we're going to start counting this day of the week. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on the next loop, close this row and open this row and reset the counter. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next loop, and so on. Until, and this is happening inside of our overall while loop, which is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way to 30, the number of days. Okay, so those are the two counters that are going on here. I want to try and make sure that that's clear of what's happening here. So you have a counter counting all of the days of the month, and then you have a counter that's counting just the days in a particular week so that we can build the rows properly. All right, so that's what's happening here. From there, then we're just doing kind of our standard output. So we're creating a cell. This is an individual day cell. We're passing in the current day, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And then we're closing each cell. And then here we're incrementing our counters. So you can see we're incrementing both current day and both day of the week. Okay, so with each loop, these are going to be incremented. This one's going to reset every end of week. This one will just stop once we reach our total number of days for the month. All right, so this here is our while loop that actually builds the whole calendar. It's actually fairly concise if you think about it for, how many different things it does. All right, now we have to get to the end and we have this remaining space down here. So just like we had the beginning space, we have this ending space. We need to account for that. So once this number, you see we're outside the while loop, okay? So once our counting for the number of days in the month stops, then we're going to run this. And what we're going to see is we're going to check and see if the day of the week counter is not equal to 7. Okay, because we know at 7 it's resetting to 0. And we know if it's not set to 7, then we're not at the last day of a particular week, meaning we have space on the end we need to fill here. So what this does is it checks to see if we're not at the end of a particular row. If we're not, then we're going to calculate this remaining days by taking the number 7 minus whatever day of the week we're on. So if we're on, the 5th, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, then we're going to do 7 minus 4. And that's going to give us how many remaining spaces we have available here. And so then we're going to do the exact same thing with this call span here, output it to the number of remaining days that we have, which will fill the rest of this space. Okay, so this is really just the kind of the opposite or the other end of this up here. This creates the beginning spaces. This creates the closing spaces down here. All right, from there, it's really simple. We just close that final row. We close our table. And then down here, we output this sucker. Now, you could definitely write this to return it. You could do an echo. It's really up to you depending on how you want to use it. You'll see down here, then I just created a very simple HTML page. And in order to use it, we just instantiate a new instance of the calendar. We passed in the month and year that we want to show, and then we call calendar show. Now, a couple caveats with this, or a couple things to keep in mind. Like I said, this is fairly bare bones and abstracted. I'm not convinced it's 100% as concise as it can be or as modular as it could be. There's probably some things here in the show method that could be parsed out into other helper methods, and maybe make this a little more modular, a little more concise, maybe split the actual business code from the display logic a little bit more. But that's what I want you to do. I want you to take this foundation and make it yours, make it your own. So I really tried not to overwrite this. I really wanted to give you the basic idea and let you take it from there. The other thing is you may be wondering, well, I want to use this. I don't just want 1 month. I want a whole year, and I want it to be clickable on each side, right? That would be my first thing. Well, you can absolutely do that because you could come down here and you could actually get the month and the year as, let's say, get parameters. So you could do, month equals get m like this, right? And you could pass the month in the URL. So you could create links here and here, maybe next and previous, that actually in those links you're specifying the month and the year, and they're being passed in get parameters, and then you're passing those in to like this. Okay, so that's one way that you could do this. Now, of course, you may want to do some checking and a little bit of whitelisting and security for the get parameter here. I won't get into all that right now, but that's one way that you could expand upon this. Maybe there's something with sessions, or maybe there's something with post data even, depending on what you're trying to do. But that would be one way that you could turn this into a full-fledged calendar. Again, I didn't want to make those decisions for you. I wanted to give you the foundation of just the calendar building part, and now you can take it and build your application, your WordPress plugin, your Drupal, whatever Drupal has that you want to use, plugins, I guess. I don't know. You can build from this foundation. This is your core class. You can build on top of it to create, the next event calendar, or the next Talkify, or the next calendar service application, whatever, for your particular needs. All right. So that's what I wanted to do for you. Hopefully you got that from this. Again, if you want the source code, you can head on over to johnmorrisonline.com/Patreon, become a supporting listener, and you can get access to the source code. One last thing, one last little pitch that I want to make to you, want to try and convince you of. Wouldn't it be cool if you were able to build this kind of stuff yourself? That if you were, like I did, you were able to look at what someone else wrote, and you were able to look at something from CSS Tricks or David Walsh's blog or wherever, and you were actually able to break it down and understand how it worked, and to be able to identify and spot places where you want to change it and you can make it better. And having all of those tools available to you, that entire skill set available to you, for you to become kind of the guru and use that however you want, to maybe you turn around and teach, or maybe just to get client services, or to get a regular job, or whatever it is. Wouldn't it be cool to have that whole skill set yourself, to be able to do this all on your own and not necessarily have to rely on other people creating tutorials and so forth? If that sounds like something that you're wanting to do, like that's where I really want to be, that's ultimately what you want, then I want to encourage you to check out my PHP 101 course at johnmorrisonline.com/PHP, because that's why I created it. The entire point of the course is to turn you into the PHP guru, to make you the one who understands all this stuff, to make you the one writing this code, to make you the one explaining it or offering it in services or working for a job, whatever it is that you want to do, however you want to use those skill set. That's the entire point. And I'm methodically building out what I hope to be the definitive guide to PHP over there. Now, I have 2 modules available. As of right now, I just came out with module 2. And in that, we get into some more advanced things like sessions and cookies and so forth. And by the end of it, you create a multi-page form using sessions that retains data from page to page and ultimately submits it into a MySQL database. The kind of thing, again, I always try to point out commercially viable skills. The kind of thing that Wufoo Forms, they sold to SurveyMonkey for about $35 million several years ago. SurveyMonkey does about $113 million a year in revenue, last I checked. That's the kind of thing that they do. That's the core of what they do, is these kind of multi-page forms where you don't lose data from page to page and so forth. That's the foundation. And so I show you how to build that in module 2. So, again, if that's something that intrigues you, that you would like to be able to do, then again, I have a limited time bundle I'm offering because I'm releasing module 2 just right now. You can go to johnmorrisonline.com/bundle and get $10 off of module 1 and module 2 together, so that you can become the PHP guru and not have to rely on my rambling tutorials. So if you don't like my tutorials, you think I'm rambling, by all means, you become the guru and you have at it. Again, johnmorrisonline.com/bundle. All right, thanks everybody for watching. If you like this episode, be sure to like it. If you know somebody who'd benefit from hearing it, I'd appreciate if you share it with them. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. That little button here on YouTube is somewhere around here, down below probably. You can click that, be subscribed, never miss an episode. Thanks again for watching. Talk to you next time.